Hello and welcome. My name is Bana. My pronouns are they, them. I'd like to welcome you to this 1 hour offering of trauma-informed yoga practice. So whatever has caused you to choose this video today, I'm so glad that you're here and you're doing something nice for yourself, even if that happens to be watching parts of the video and deciding if it's the right kind of practice for you. There's no obligation or expectation here. So what does the next hour look like? We might begin first with acknowledgements. I like to do this at the start of our practice because it positions the practice in a context which is really relevant to trauma-informed yoga, given that colonization, patriarchy, misogyny, queerphobia, and all manner of other impactful structural inequities may have caused you to come here. So we'll make those acknowledgements at the start, and then we'll go into a short relaxation, which will be entirely of your choice, as every type of movement and action over the next hour is. So after our short relaxation, just to help us drop into our bodies and be in a grounded space before we begin moving, we'll then start to take on some both non-traditional and traditional yoga shapes. It'll be a bit of a mix so that you've got lots of options for how you want to move your body. And I'd like you to know at this point too that you're really welcome to choose options that aren't presented on this video at all. So if you're feeling, this doesn't feel like quite the right practice for me and none of the options are fitting, you're so welcome just to do what you need to do. Yoga is all about listening to your own body, your own being, and discerning what is my own truth, yeah? So you don't have to in any way replicate what I'm giving here. So yeah, we'll move for quite a large portion of the hour, and then towards the end of the practice, we'll move back into that state of relaxation. So relaxation looks really different for everyone, and we know from different studies into trauma and particularly understandings of complex trauma that stillness and silence can sometimes be very intimidating for people who've had to really stay alert and hypervigilant to survive. So if I say relaxation, and relaxation in a more traditional capacity doesn't feel right for you, then you can continue moving. You might even take on some like gentle rocking motions or some soothing actions in your body as a way of filling that space, but still staying connected to the sense of nourishment and soothing. So that's what our plan looks like. And now I'd welcome you, if you want to begin with me, we can make those acknowledgements. So I'm just settling into a sense of where I am in space. And you might find that doing that is helpful with eyes open or closed, your choice. And I honor and acknowledge the traditional peoples of the lands on which we're practicing. For some of you, that might be local indigenous tribes. For me here in southern Bohemia, in Czechia, it's the Bohemian peoples, the European peoples, Slavic, local to this area. And we can honor and acknowledge also the lineage of yoga itself. Yoga emerges from Himalayan regions in the Indian subcontinent, connected countries around that area. And both indigenous and diasporic peoples were involved in its development. So I offer up my gratitude to those peoples and the many teachers down the generations who have maintained the heart of yoga to expand our awareness, which is a really helpful thing for us to do in experiences of trauma. The more aware we can become, the more easeful it is to find ways of meeting our needs and nourishing ourselves. And also, yoga traditionally helps us to understand the interconnectedness of all things. So we understand through yoga cause and effect, and how we might very gently, very kindly, mindfully, with compassion, start to shift those causes in our lives which have effects that aren't serving us. And so now you might like to find your way into some sort of a shape or position that's going to feel really relaxing to you. And it's okay to choose to remain seated if that feels better. You might also bring some household props into play to help you feel really comfortable and nurtured. I've just got these pillows here, and I've also got a blanket. Blankets are a really great second skin for if we're feeling a little bit vulnerable, or we feel like we just need some weight on the body. And I welcome you to settle into whatever position works for you. And this is your time to simply notice what's happening right now. Maybe what's happening on a physical level. Could be what's happening on a mental or emotional level. And if you have a sense of spirituality, you can also just check in on the spiritual level. And just a reminder too that if stillness, silence, or having your eyes closed doesn't feel great, you've got the freedom to maybe just gently rock or move your body. And so from this sense of relaxation, I'm going to invite you to anchor in to an experience in this moment that does feel nourishing. So whether that is the connection between your body and the ground, sometimes that solidity can feel really reassuring, or whether it's the gentle inflow and outflow of your breath. And of course, if there's nothing in this moment that feels easeful for you to connect to as a nourishing resource, you could even visualize or remember a person or a pet, an experience or a place where you felt really nourished, really seen. And once you have a sense of that thing which works for you as an anchor, maybe just take a mental snapshot of how it feels in connection with that inner resource. Know that this is somewhere you can return to at any point over our time of practice. You're welcome whenever we're in movement to just pause and check in with this nourishing, pleasant inner resource. And so in a moment, we're going to begin to move. You might like to just orient yourself to that possibility. And then start to bring some gentle motion to your body. You might like to take a bit of a stretch. And then maybe very slowly, if you've been lying down, make your way up into some sort of a seated position. And it's quite possible that our regular cross-legged shape doesn't feel so good for you. You can take any position with your legs, which is going to make it easeful for your body to be upright. So just experiment a few times, find where works for you. I'm noticing the tension that I hold quite a lot in my hip here, so I'm going back into that first cross-legged shape. And once you're there, maybe you can notice what's happening in your spine. So that's a place you might become aware of. And you might start to experiment with some gentle motion through your spine as well. I quite like to shift from side to side, just feeling the way that my rib cage or my upper torso sort of slides across, and the gentle bend in each side of my body there. Maybe you want to try forwards and backwards as well. Of course, side to side, forwards and backwards isn't the only way that we can move our spine. So keep on experimenting, perhaps even some gentle circles, or you could try the diagonal. And see if you can notice what feels particularly nice for your body, whether it's helping you to relieve tension, or whether the strength and the engagement of some muscle feels empowering. Just play around with it. And perhaps you'd like to bring some arms into that motion. So I'm just raising my arms as I gently open my heart towards the ceiling. And then I'm going to soften my arms down and round out through my spine. So this is one way you might try involving your arms. Another way could be to wrap around with the curvature and then open wide, wrapping around and opening wide. Maybe it works to do this with your breath. The exhalation could happen as you close in. The inhalation could happen as you open out. But of course, find the breath that's feeling good for you. And you'll see that I'm doing a lot of different types of arm movements. This is so you can get some ideas. It's not necessarily the right or the wrong way to do it. It's just different. And then after a time, you might settle for a moment just to feel the after effects of those movements. A reminder too that perhaps if the stillness doesn't work, one way of settling could be that gentle rocking motion. And so you could be noticing the muscles of your shoulders and your back. Or you could be returning to that inner resource, knowing that you can go there at any point. So from here, we might mobilize through our lower body a little bit. And one option would be to bring your feet out in front of you, around about hip distance apart. And then you could just swish your knees from side to side. Sometimes we call this windscreen wipers. So that's one option. And you could play with the breath here as well, maybe breathing in with your knees rising, breathing out, or perhaps the opposite, breathing out as your knees rise, breathing in as your knees drop to each side. If you'd like to have a go at a different mobilization of your legs, a gentle straddle, and just swishing your heel forward and back towards your body. This has a different sensation in your hips and your torso. So I welcome you to really listen to the sensations in your body as you're playing with these different possibilities of movement. And notice which sensations feel really good for you, which sensations not so interesting. And you can choose how you want to relate to the pleasantness or unpleasantness of those sensations. Maybe today you need to be really gentle with yourself and you just lean into what feels really good, really nourishing. Well, sometimes we can feel a little bit stronger, a little bit more empowered to play at the edges of our comfort zone, and that's okay as well. And then once again, when you've mobilized your hips a little, you can come into any seated shape that feels comfortable. And maybe just observing the sensations in your lower body. How does it feel here for you now? This is all really good information for how you might like to move in everyday life. So we're going to, perhaps, if it feels good, make our way into a kneeling position. And then from this kneeling position, you can choose I'm just going to move these pillows first. All right. You can choose a range of different options. One thing that I really like to play with is extending through my hips here and then coming back down. It's just a very different experience of moving through my thighs and my legs, and it's recruiting some really strong muscle groups in the body, down the back side of our back, our hips and our legs. You might also really feel your thighs get involved. I'm choosing to inhale as I rise up and to exhale as I lower down. Maybe your choice is different. Another thing you could play with is stepping forward and just leaning into your hip a little. And you can do a similar thing, just play with that rocking motion if the rocking motion is soothing. Or maybe you want to hang out in your range of motion, just noticing what sensation is there. And of course, you've got those options with your arms. You can play with where your arms are. You might even take a little twist, experimenting and allowing the feedback that your body is giving you to direct where you're going. I'm not the director, I'm just playing with this practice too. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did on my right leg, now on my left leg, because my body really enjoys that symmetry, evening things out. But again, you have the choice. Work with what you're able to do, what feels accessible for you today. I'm going to play with my arms again, reaching up and taking that twist. Maybe you want to twist in the opposite direction to me. Perhaps you want to keep your arms in motion like I was demonstrating in our seated shape. Find what works, leave the rest. And of course, when we settle after each round of movement, settling in the way that feels good for you, and either checking in with how your body is feeling or checking in with that inner resource that you connected to during relaxation. So I'm going to invite you now to come into a standing position. You can make your way to standing however feels good. And I really like these standing shapes for if I'm feeling a little bit low or a little bit challenged by my day. And there can be, there can be a bit of a challenge in and of themselves. But it's giving me a very firm sense of grounding here, just to feel the soles of my feet. This is what we often refer to as mountain shape. And you might notice as you're standing in the mountain shape, how are the soles of your feet in connection to the ground? Do you feel your whole foot connecting, or maybe just parts of your foot? It can be interesting to explore the distribution of weight by gently rocking from side to side, forward or backward, maybe even in little circles. Again, you can explore with your arms, and that exploration can look quite different from person to person. I just noticed that I really felt to move through this twist in a nice big round circular way. So I'm going to do that a few more times, and you're welcome to join me, or to just choose something a little bit different. There's also this nice side to side motion. I'm keeping it relatively dynamic and a little bit faster paced in the way that I'm moving today. I'm doing that intentionally because sometimes that kinetic energy that emerges from experiences of trauma really benefits from a little bit faster pace. But if you're feeling to slow things down at any point, you're welcome to do that. I also notice that I can round out my back here, bend my knees, create a nice C curve in my spine. And then I can open my arms up, extend my legs, lifting my chest up towards the sky. And the sense of contraction here and expansion is another really helpful tool in processing and being able to support our bodies after trauma. Because these very simple movements are building neurological pathways in our brain for how to move between contraction and expansion easily. And that might be supportive in times when we do feel really contracted, really small and pulled in, to be able to open up a little bit if that feels right. And also when we're feeling really kind of energetically open and expanded and we might need a little more protection, it gives us the option to come in. So these dynamic movements are teaching our body how to quite literally move between different states, and each different state can have a different feeling tone. So let's play with that idea of feeling tone. And I'm going to invite you now into what in yoga we call a warrior two. And I'm just stepping, so from my mountain shape, I'm just stepping out to the side, pointing my toes to the side there. And then I might take this back leg a little bit further to somewhere it feels quite comfortable, grounded and stable. And I'm feeling my pelvis both in my body, but I'm also putting my hands on my hips so that I can feel the direction of that pelvis and where it wants to sit really easily and naturally. So you're welcome to try this too. And then once you've found that nice grounded position, maybe you want to raise your arms. So there's an option. This is an option. Even up here is an option. Heart center is an option. Or any other position with your arms that feels good. So here in my warrior two, I'm just noticing the feeling tone, what I like to call the feeling tone of the shape. And what I mean by that is, you know, how does it make me feel internally, mentally, emotionally to be in this particular position? And maybe it's not so good, so I can come out of it. Or maybe it feels really good and you want to remain there for much longer than I am. And then we're going to turn perhaps to the other side if that's a shape that felt good for you and you want to play with it on your other leg. There's the possibility of our warrior two and the different options that we've got with our arms. They're not the only options. And then just sensing in, what's it like to be here? And maybe there's just a small change that you want to make to give it a different feel. And maybe once that small change has happened, you realize you want to go back or go somewhere different. So we're just playing, hopefully enjoying the journey, and then finding our way back into our mountain shape, if that's a good neutral place for you to return to. Maybe you choose something different. And I'm taking my time in these neutral shapes in between movement. Again, just to either check in with my inner resource or to notice how my body has responded to that movement. So So I'm going to invite you through a little bit of a flow now. And while this will have some particular yoga shapes involved in it, you're really welcome to modify those, to change it up and just to make it more suitable for your own practice. So I'm going to begin again in my mountain shape, but just really paying attention to my feet, lining up the outsides of my feet, softening through my knees, maybe jiggling around a little and getting grounded. And then I'm going to inhale, raising my arms. You're welcome to come with me, or maybe you just stay standing. And then I'm exhaling, bringing my hands to heart center. And I'm going to play with that a few times as a round, inhaling, and growing long through my body. And then I'm exhaling, bringing those hands to heart center. Now I'm going to add a chair shape onto that. So the inhalation is going to bring my arms up. Maybe you come with me, maybe not. Exhaling, I'm going to drop my hips a little and find this imaginary chair behind me. And then perhaps my hands draw down to heart center. I can soften a little through my lower back, maybe keeping my arms bent, and then rolling up through my spine. There's a nice inhale. And there's a seat down into the chair on my exhale. I take a nice inhalation here just to really feel that feeling tone of the shape, and then I'm going to exhale, bring my hands to heart center. There's another inhalation there for me to sense into my body, and you can, if you want, fold it forward a little and roll back up through the spine. So if I take this to the front of my mat, and for you at home, that might be on a yoga mat, maybe it's just on the carpet in the living room. So make sure that you've got a little bit of space behind you. There's my inhalation. And I'm sitting down into my hips. Maybe you're choosing part of this and not the rest. Maybe you've got your own shapes to work through. You can bring your hands to heart center if you want. And you can relax a little more, softening through your lower back. As I'm rolling up here, I'm going to step back 1 foot and find my way into that gentle warrior two. And here is some real nice playful options to come into a side angle, which I practiced before. Maybe if you didn't do it with me, you might like to try it now, maybe not. You can also take it into a little bit of a back bend, gazing upwards. Perhaps you want to straighten the front leg for a moment and just notice how that changes the shape, changes the felt sense in your body. You could even take this back hip behind you a little and reach forward. Maybe there's a triangle shape there for you. And you can slide your hand down or up your leg, depending on what feels most comfortable. So we also have the possibility of reversing and back bending through our triangle shape. You're welcome to try that. You're welcome to find your way back to warrior two. So I'm now going to turn and face the front here. We often call this warrior one. And from warrior one, maybe stepping back to the front of our mat or the space in which you're working. I'm just going to take a nice big shoulder roll because that feels good. You find what feels good here too. Could be a jiggle, could be stillness, maybe eyes open, eyes closed. Noticing a heartbeat is sometimes helpful, or maybe not. Returning to the inner resource is also welcome. So I'm going to repeat that on the opposite side, and you can choose to take on some of the shapes or all of them, or just do your own thing. There's my inhalation and my exhalation to sit me down into the chair shape. If that breath work doesn't feel quite right for you, don't worry about my breathing pattern. It's just my breathing pattern. Yours can be different. I'm going to settle my hands down to heart center. Maybe there's a very gentle, soft knee bent forward fold if that's right for your body. I'm going to roll it back up because that feels good. And then I'm going to step my opposite leg back now, opening my arms out. Feels good for me to be in this horizontal position with my arms, but again, you can put them anywhere you like. And then I'm going to play with that little side angle. It feels really nice from the heel all the way up to my fingertips to feel that stretch. And you can sense into your body whereabouts you want to amplify or extend to feel that nice energetic experience. And then there's a little reverse warrior and a return. I'm going to straighten my front leg because triangle was feeling good. You can keep it bent or you can shift into a different place. I'm tucking my hip back and under just to give a nice easeful range of motion, and then finding where it's comfortable to settle my hand. Maybe it feels good to look up, maybe it feels good to look straight ahead or at the ground, your choice. And then I'm going to play with reversing my triangle as well. Returning to that warrior two, I'm feeling the energy really strongly in this front leg now. So it's been working hard. And of course you can step out of this much sooner than I am if you feel to, or maybe you step with me to the front of your mat. You can relax and release your arms if they've been raised. And you can find what feels good to settle in a neutral shape for now. I'm noticing this little wobble through my pelvis is nice. Maybe a shoulder roll or two. Perhaps stillness is the best thing for you. Your choice at all times. And so I'm just going to return to face the camera, but you can stay where you are if you're still facing the camera already. There's no wrong or right position to be in. Maybe you prefer just to hear my voice and not look at the screen. We all get a lot of screen time nowadays. So from this standing shape, you'll notice I've brought my feet closer together. That's one way of moving into some balances, but it's not the right way or the only way. So if you want to come in from a wider stance or your mountain shape, you can. And my offering here is to play with our balancing on one foot. And you might begin just by feeling and sensing into the leg that you want to balance on. as I'm doing that, I'm noticing that the muscles in my leg automatically want to sort of switch on and become more active simply by my thinking about that leg. So see what's happening in your body. You can notice, how does body respond when we send our attention there? And there's that lovely saying, where attention goes, energy flows. So can you feel the flow of engagement, energy, or activation through your body as you sense into that leg? And then very slowly you might start to lift your other foot. Maybe the ball of your other foot remains on the ground, that's okay. Maybe you want to bring your arms wide, can sometimes help with balance, to just sort of soften your elbows and allow your forearms and your hands to float a little. And you can play with lifting that leg up. So if it feels good for you, maybe you lift and hold your knee. Or perhaps you just vary between these 2 points. Lots of choices. And then you can relax and release. I like to step out into mountain shape after each balance because it's just a little more stable, and that gives me the ability to really feel the after effects of balance on my legs. And again, I'm going to go to the other side because my body likes that symmetry. Not every body is capable of doing things on both sides all of the time, so don't worry about it if it's not for you. And again, I'm spending some time just really connecting to this leg of mine, which is doing such a good job of holding me up all day. And so maybe it feels nice for you just to sort of gently be touching the floor with your other leg. Or maybe you want to lift and move between those 2 points, touching the floor, releasing the floor, touching and releasing. Maybe you hold. And then when you're ready, you can come into whatever shape feels best for you to settle, to notice, to reconnect with your inner resource. And perhaps you observed some things about that balancing process. For me, I noticed that when my mind is really clear and calm, my balance is much better. And when I'm thinking a lot or my mind's a little bit more activated, then my balance is more challenging. So if you want to play over the next couple of balances with ways of supporting a clearer headspace and more relaxation, then you might like to focus really closely on the out breath. And I find this a useful tool in addition to looking at a single point, which we're often told to look at a single point when we're balancing. That is one way of balancing. Another way is to put your concentration in this breath. So as I'm lifting my leg, yes, my eyes are sort of settled, but they're not kind of overpowering or over-efforting. And instead, my mind is really in this exhalation. I'm taking my inhalation naturally. And then I'm allowing my exhalation to just slowly release as I really feel that exhalation. And it's helping to calm my mind, and keep me balanced for a little bit longer. Maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't. Okie doke. Once more to the other side for me. You do what you need to do. I'm just making my way here. I've also noticed I've stopped using my arms because I'm so focused on my breath. My breath is actually keeping me there. It's so curious the many diverse ways that people find to make these practices really work for them. So celebrate your experimentation and working it out for yourself. Once my leg is starting to feel like it's nearing the edge of its capacity, I'm just putting my foot down. But you can always undershoot that capacity as well and just be super gentle on yourself today. Maybe some gentle hip circles here. That's often feeling quite good for me to release any residual tension in my hips after balancing. But you can just do some bends or some other shapes if it's better. Have a play. I'm just trying to offer a few different options of movements after each of the stronger practices. So remaining standing for now, in my case, you are welcome to sit down again if you like and to go on with your own practice however you need to. I'm going to take one more balance challenge here, and this time it's going to be to rise up on my toes. In order to do this, what I've found is really helpful is to become aware of my belly and maybe just engage the muscles around my abdomen a little bit more strongly. And I notice that as I do that, the back of my legs and my hips automatically engage as well. And so once I have that sense of core stability, I also find it helpful to raise my arms directly upward. But maybe a different arm position works for you. And then rising up onto my heels. And again, I'm using that slow, prolonged exhalation and the soft gaze forward to help with my balance. Maybe you've got a different tool. And then I'm relaxing and releasing that down. So some things that can be helpful to be aware of as we're doing this type of balance as well is just the distribution of weight in your feet. And, you know, for me, I find that the weight in my feet naturally wants to roll outwards, which makes it a little bit more challenging when I come up into that balance. So I've noticed that for my body, putting a little bit more pressure into the big toe knuckles helps me stay sort of more contained in that raised position. So that's something you might like to try if it feels like a good cue for you. Otherwise, see if you can, on the next time you rise up, just notice the way that the weight naturally distributes underneath your feet. And where does it feel good to place that weight? To the inside or the outside of your toes, in the big toe knuckle, or maybe spread throughout. And then you can relax and release. Maybe a gentle bend or two through those knees. I find that nice. It just helps to elongate my calf muscles, the lower leg muscles again after having done that work. And we will make our way to the floor. For some people, this is nice through a forward fold. What I'm going to do today is just take a little bit of a relaxed squat position and place my hands behind me, stretching my legs out long. And then I'm just sensing into the new relationship I have with the ground here. Maybe noticing what it's like to take the pressure off your feet, having done some balances. And so it can be really nice after doing a lot of standing practice to do some forward folding shapes. Not everyone enjoys this type of a forward fold, so another variation could be to bring your knees up to your chest rather than your chest down to your knees. And whichever option you might be choosing, you could always drop your head a little as well, really relaxing your back body. And perhaps you're releasing whatever shape you've chosen to take there. I'm also going to stretch out my hip because we did some strong standing positions. For me, it looks like this sort of figure four shape. I'm just choosing to be in an upright position here, but you can do it in many different ways. It might be like me. It might be by leaning back slightly on your hands and supporting your body here. It could also be to lie down and to hold on to the knee. Find what works for you. Or maybe you have a different hip stretch that's going to feel nourishing to the muscles that you've been using. And if you've been in an asymmetrical shape, there's the opportunity now to swap sides and give yourself some time on the other. And as you're sitting here, it can be nice to notice too the shift in our inner experience or the feeling tone from standing to sitting. I notice I'm suddenly in a much more inward focused state, simply by making that transition from standing to seated yoga. And so perhaps you're coming out of whatever shape you found yourself in here. We're going to now move into our final relaxation. And again, I really welcome you to take as long as you need to find what's most comfortable for you. If that involves getting blankets and pillows involved again, you can. I'm going to remain seated because it feels more easeful for me to hold space over this last few moments of our practice. But you can be lying down, You can be seated alongside me. You can even relax standing if that feels good for you. So when you've settled and you've found that place which feels really nourishing, and maybe there's a little bit of movement to it still, that is welcome. Or perhaps it is just stillness. You'd be so welcome to notice what's happening in your body, or to return to that inner resource if that feels more appropriate for you. Whichever path you choose, you're invited to remain with that. And what I mean by that is not to be statically held in place, but to remain with what feels good. And if what feels good changes, then you can also shift your focus to suit that. If you'd like to, you can always check in with those terrains of experience which I named at the start of our practice. Perhaps noticing now how you feel on a physical level, how you might feel mentally or emotionally, and if it feels right for your practice, how you feel spiritually. In yoga, it's not what we're doing that's of import. It's this act of noticing. It's the cultivation of our awareness. So no matter how you've shown up today, no matter what you chose to do or not do with your body, you have spent some time noticing. So you've done a wonderful yoga practice. This noticing is something that you can carry into everyday life, when and how it might be accessible to you. And I also really encourage you to be gentle with yourself about that as well. We're human beings, and it's simply not possible to be 100% present all of the time, especially when we've had really challenging experiences in life. It's a part of a very natural, very normal protection mechanism that our minds take us away from this noticing. So in trauma-informed practice, we're undertaking this really gentle, really loving way of inviting noticing without making it a chore or an obligation. And this invitational nature is what I use with myself, knowing that I too often get taken away or experience dissociation of varying forms. That simply when I start to notice again, I celebrate the fact that I'm noticing. And whenever I'm not noticing, I try and offer myself self-compassion and understanding for why I might want to move away from unpleasant experiences. And slowly over time, it's become more possible for me to keep noticing, because that self-compassionate, really understanding approach has made the noticing feel much safer for me. This might work for you too, it might not. So again, I just reiterate that you get to choose how your practice looks. And with that in mind, if today it looks like remaining in your relaxation for longer, you're very welcome to stay there. And if you'd like to finish up and close alongside me, then maybe you gently make your way into a more upright position, just taking your time to move your body, to become aware of the space around you. I'm going to bring my hands to heart center. For me, this is a gesture of honor and respect, not just a kind of arbitrary mudra that I've picked up and become accustomed to. It's a genuine feeling of heart-centeredness, thankfulness, and honoring of your presence here with me today. Whatever form that has taken, thank you very much for being here. And I hope that you find your way into a really healthful, nourishing, happy experience in your whole being.